Good evening guys, welcome back to the channel. So holiday season is almost upon us, which means we should be able to make some good progress on the electric conversion over the next couple of weeks. I think where you left us last, we just fitted the rear doors, and as you can see we fitted the glass in there and also the brackets for the rear number plates. I've also pulled through the rear harness as well, but right now we can actually focus on another element of the project, which will be the interior. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, why would you actually do the interior at this stage when the car's not actually running yet? Well, this is the point where an electric car versus a combustion car probably separate in the way that you do final assembly, because I need to get the interior in place to take some final measurements for things like the battery box, the drive-by-wire accelerator box, and also the shifter control unit, because they actually go in slightly different places than the original Mini fitments would be. So we need to do some initial drilling, but also then cut out the carpet to make sure these things are not interfering with each other and are actually in the right place ergonomically. So we need to get the carpets in, and I need to get the seats in so that I can take some measurements. So yeah, let's crack on with it. So guys, the plan of attack this evening is to get the carpeting in place and get the rear bench seat in place so that we can actually take measurements underneath the seat and also behind for the battery box. We also need to do the first fit for the controller box, and it doesn't exactly fit over the existing Mini hole, so we need to understand what the ergonomics are in relation to the seats. But before we can fit the seats, I need to fit my extender brackets because I am close to 2 meters tall, need the additional adjustment. And I do prefer these from JB Fabrications in the UK because they do attach on the rear of the main frame as well, which gives you a nice secure fit of the chair. So let's crack on with that. Okay guys, hope you can see this. So I've now riv nutted the rear of the cross member because that will allow me to mount the seat extenders. Now I just need to repeat that for the rest. That's all 4 seat extender brackets in place now. What I did forget to mention guys is when you do these types of seat extender brackets, just make sure you give yourself a little bit of space underneath. There's no need to be too precise on these because we are going to be putting carpet underneath, and it just makes your job a little bit easier later on. So let's hoover up all these shavings and let's fit some of the carpet. Okay guys, that's the rear carpet fitted in place, and I've also put the rubbers in place ready to drop the rear bench seat in as well. Now, one of those interference fit issues that I mentioned before is actually demonstrated with the controller box here, because if I use the existing Mini drillings, you'll see it will actually interfere a little bit with the handbrake. So we need to move this back a little bit and re-drill, and also recut the carpet to do that. Now, obviously, a point of admission here, because this is not a Newton interior, for the very simple reason that Newton molded carpets are already pre-cut, and as I need slightly different placing, I actually found one that does not have the holes pre-cut from Summerfield Mini. So I'm going to crack on and do the front now, and then start to lay out how the shifter and the accelerator box needs to be positioned relative to the seat. So yeah, let's get the rear seat in first. So that's the rear bench seat in place. Now we can take some measurements for one of the batteries that will go under the rear seat. And actually, while I was fitting that, I realized that I never showed you what the final choices were for the interior. Now, we are keeping all the interior cards the same, but I did contemplate having a seat change. And in the end, what I decided to do was have the rear seat recovered almost like a GT style seat from the Clubman. And as far as the front seats is concerned, well, the old seats were way too small, too low in the back for me. So actually I had some Mark IV seats from a Mini Mayfair covered in the GT style as well. So I think that will work quite nicely with this combination. Okay guys, I think I got my seating position correct for the accelerator box and for the control box. And actually, if you look at this, I'm going to be able to use the very first hole that was pre-drilled for the old shifter, and I'm going to have to re-drill and do spaces on the rear because this is in the right position for me now and certainly doesn't interfere with the handbrake anymore. So we'll do the drillings for that before we actually cut the carpet to fit this different size box. Okay guys, this is a really tight space to try and film in, so hopefully you can see this. So your accelerator box, your drive-by-wire system, fits in the space that your normal accelerator would do. It's very tight, close, so you need to be precise here. It comes with a mounting bracket, so you can mount that onto the floor, because in this area you need to be careful about the steering rack, which is directly behind this box, and then the cable would actually pass directly through the bulkhead in one of the existing holes. So in fact, apart from the drilling that you need to do for the mounting bracket on this, there's very minimal change to the original layout of the car. Luckily, this accelerator pedal, by the way, adjusts so you can actually have it starting at any height you want, so you can line it up to your brake pedal quite nicely. Okay guys, now that we've got the interior pieces in place, we can actually turn our attention to the engine bay. And the first thing that we need to do is actually fit the cradle for the motor, or the electric motor itself. Now, this actually mounts directly onto an existing Mini subframe, but you still need to do a little bit of drilling, and it's actually to do with these knuckles on the end. Now, I've left these loose because you do need to mark the subframe and do some drilling for these last two pieces, but as you can see, it uses the existing mounting hardware that you would find normally on the engine. So let's get this in place so I can show you. Let me get you in a little bit closer so that you can see this, but you can see here it's mounted to the existing subframe holes on both sides. What you need to do is then position this knuckle underneath here, drill the bottom of the subframe and attach it underneath. This then gives you the mounting plate for the motor itself, as well as the diff location point where your drive shafts would pass through. So it's actually quite a very simple cradle, but very effective because there's a minimum amount of drilling that's required. So yeah, let me crack on and get those drilled from underneath so that we can get this secured in place. So these are the two shoulder brackets that you have to put on the back of the subframe. It's quite a pain to drill the subframe because in this area the metal is quite thick, so it takes quite some time. Now the cradle now slots into this area here, as well as using the engine mounts. Hi guys, I just want to stop the video there for a moment and let you know that any donations or ad revenue generated by this channel is actually being given towards cancer counselling charities that are helping families that have received a cancer diagnosis get through difficult times. So any help from your side, donations, or just watch the video to the end is highly appreciated. And you know, from my side, thank you so much for the support so far. Okay guys, that's the lower cradle resting in place with the necessarily drillings done to support the rear. There is another bracket, much the same as the Mini engine, a top mounted engine steady bracket that goes from the top of this across to your bulkhead that needs to go in place. But we need to look at how the E-box actually mounts now into the subframe, because I believe that also requires some drilling as well. So let me get that in, put that in place. So the E-box is mounted in place. This also houses your kill switch as well. Now the E-box does mount to the front of your subframe, so I need to mark this out and do some drilling. It's just 2 holes at the bottom. Not sure you can see this. Effectively what you're trying to do is build a box around where the electric motor would actually sit. So let me mark that up so we can do some drillings and then we can move on to the next piece. So I've got the electronics box resting on top in its position because it does actually attach to the E-box once the E-box is secured in place, because I did want to check some of the clearance issues. Now the guys at electricmini.nl did warn me that this kit was originally designed for left-hand drive cars and there might be some interference issues with the brakes, and as you can see here I need to reroute the brake lines so it doesn't interfere with the top electronics box, but also so that the 2 mounting plates down there can actually sit on top of each other. So yeah, actually it's one of the reasons why I didn't bleed the brakes originally, because of that early warning. I thought I might have to change this routing, but yeah, that's no major issue. And maybe we have to take off the corner here a little bit of this plate just to allow it to clear the cylinder. So yeah, there's going to be quite some tweaking to be done before those 2 pieces can connect to each other and sit in place. Okay guys, so once I've sorted out this interference area here, we can then move on to the next pieces of the hardware that needs to be mounted on the car, and that's actually this extruded aluminium tube that is carrying the hab powered line to the batteries on the rear and the motor at the front. And we also have to fit this small battery bracket as well for this 12-volt battery, which basically is saving the settings of the components box. So really it's more to do with memory than it is to do with the overall system itself. But first I need to try and sort out those interference pieces. Okay guys, that's it for this week. As you can see, we've made quite a lot of progress with the installation, but we've still got a lot of small jobs to do before we can even consider looking at installing the electric motor or the rear battery pack. Not to mention the fact that I still haven't built up the 2 front doors, so plenty to keep me occupied in the next few weeks. I do want to say a big thank you to everybody that supported us in the last 12 months. It's been amazing. Hopefully the channel continues to grow in 2022. And remember, it's all for a good cause. In the meantime, I just want to wish everybody happy holidays. Hopefully you guys can relax, reflect, and look forward to talking to you in the new year. Take care. Bye-bye.